the day you mistake God's preparation for God's absence. What if the biggest mistake you're making right now is believing that nothing is happening? Think about that for a moment. How many times have you looked at your life and thought, I'm stuck? How many times have you prayed for change, waited for an answer, hoped for a breakthrough, and then watched another day pass with no visible sign that anything was moving forward? You wake up. You do what you have to do. You carry your responsibilities. You keep believing as best as you can. Yet deep inside, there is a growing question that refuses to go away. God, where are you? Maybe you don't say it out loud. Maybe you've learned to hide it behind a smile. Maybe you still attend church, still read scripture, still pray every day. But somewhere in your heart, you're wondering why your life seems frozen while everyone else appears to be moving ahead. The difficult part is not the battle itself. The difficult part is the waiting. It's watching doors remain closed. It's seeing opportunities disappear. It's feeling like your efforts produce little results. It's wondering if your best days are already behind you. But what if your current season is not what it appears to be? What if the silence is not rejection? What if the delay is not denial? What if the stillness you're experiencing is actually preparation? Throughout Scripture, God repeatedly worked in places nobody could see. Before Joseph stood in a palace, he sat in a prison. Before David ruled a kingdom, he spent years hiding in caves. Before Moses led a nation, he disappeared into a desert for decades. From a human perspective, each of these lives looked stagnant. Nothing seemed to be happening. No progress, no recognition, no visible victory. Yet behind the scenes, God was accomplishing something far greater than they could understand. And maybe that's exactly what is happening in your life right now. The truth is that we often judge God's activity by what we can see. If a door opens, we believe God is working. If circumstances improve, we believe God is moving. If success arrives, we believe God has remembered us. But God does some of His greatest work where human eyes cannot reach. He works in hidden places. He works in silent seasons. He works beneath the surface. The seed buried underground looks inactive until the day it breaks through the soil. Yet the entire time, life was developing where nobody could see it. Could it be that your roots are growing right now? Could it be that God is strengthening something within you before revealing something through you? Because here's what many people never realize. A victory received too early can become a burden instead of a blessing. God is not only preparing your future, He is preparing you for your future. And those are not the same thing. The person you are becoming today may be more important than the breakthrough you're praying for tomorrow. So before you decide that your life is standing still, before you conclude that God has forgotten you, before you allow discouragement to convince you that nothing will ever change, stay with me. Because what you're about to discover may completely transform the way you see this season of your life. There is a reason some victories take time. There is a reason some doors remain closed longer than expected. There is a reason God allows certain seasons to stretch beyond our understanding. And once you understand that reason, you may never look at your waiting season the same way again. Because the chapter you're living right now may not be evidence that God is absent. It may be evidence that He is preparing something far bigger than you have imagined. And what comes next reveals the first hidden sign that heaven may be doing far more than you think when heaven delays the spotlight. Most people assume that if God is preparing them for something greater, life should become more visible, more exciting, and more rewarding. They expect opportunities to increase, recognition to appear, and progress to become obvious. But what if God's process works in the opposite direction? What if one of the clearest signs that God is preparing you for something significant is that He temporarily removes you from the spotlight? This is where many people become discouraged. They look around and see others being promoted while they remain unnoticed. They see others receiving opportunities while their own doors seem closed. They see others advancing while they continue living what appears to be an ordinary life. And without realizing it, they begin measuring God's faithfulness through public success. Yet Scripture reveals a very different pattern. God often develops people in hidden places before revealing them in public places. Think about David. Long before he became king, he spent countless days alone in the fields caring for sheep. There were no crowds applauding him, There were no headlines announcing his future. There was only a young man learning faithfulness when nobody was watching. Those lonely fields were not a punishment. They were preparation. Every hour spent protecting sheep from danger was building courage. Every moment spent worshiping God in isolation was building intimacy. Every unseen battle was shaping the leader he would eventually become. Now think about Joseph. The dream God gave him pointed toward influence and leadership. Yet instead of moving directly toward the promise, Joseph experienced betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment. From the outside, it looked as though his life was moving backward, but heaven was not measuring his life by his location. Heaven was measuring his life by his transformation. While Joseph thought he was losing years, God was building wisdom. While Joseph felt forgotten, God was building character. While Joseph sat in confinement, God was preparing him to govern a nation. This is something many people never understand. God is often more concerned with who you are becoming than where you currently are. We focus on position. God focuses on preparation. We focus on visibility. God focuses on maturity. We focus on arriving. God focuses on becoming. And that is why hidden seasons can feel so confusing. You know God has placed dreams inside your heart. You know there is more ahead. Yet your circumstances seem to suggest the opposite. What you cannot see is that God sometimes removes distractions, applause, and recognition because they can interfere with the deeper work He wants to accomplish. The spotlight reveals people. The hidden season develops people. One exposes character, the other builds character. And the difference is enormous. Many people ask God for influence. Few ask God for the wisdom required to handle influence. Many ask for success. Few ask for the strength required to sustain success. Many want the platform. Few want the process. But God understands something we often forget. A blessing received without preparation can become a burden. A promotion received without maturity can become a downfall. A victory received before its proper time can create problems greater than the struggles it was meant to solve. That is why your current season may not be evidence that you're being overlooked. It may be evidence that you're being developed. The hidden season is not where dreams die. The hidden season is where they become strong enough to survive reality. And there is another truth that makes this process even more surprising. Sometimes God is not merely keeping you hidden. Sometimes He allows certain plans to collapse completely. At first, it feels devastating. Later, it becomes clear that what looked like destruction was actually divine direction. And that's exactly what we're about to explore next. The victory that starts underground. One of the most frustrating experiences in life is putting in effort and seeing no immediate results. You pray, but nothing changes. You work hard, but progress feels invisible. You remain faithful, but the breakthrough you expected never seems to arrive. After a while, a dangerous thought begins to grow inside the mind. Maybe this isn't working. That thought has caused countless people to abandon a process that was much closer to success than they realized. The problem is that we naturally judge progress by what we can see. If something is visible, we believe it is growing. If something is hidden, we assume nothing is happening. But God's creation constantly teaches the opposite lesson. Consider a seed planted deep in the ground. The moment it disappears beneath the soil, it appears lifeless. Days pass, weeks pass. Nothing seems different. The ground looks exactly the same. Anyone looking from the outside could easily conclude that the seed has failed. Yet beneath the surface, a remarkable process is taking place. Roots are forming, strength is developing, structure is being established. Life is expanding where nobody can see it. And here is what makes this principle so powerful. The part that remains hidden is often more important than the part that eventually becomes visible. A tree survives storms because of roots nobody admires. A building stands because of a foundation nobody celebrates. A life remains strong because of lessons learned during seasons nobody understands. This is one of God's favorite ways of working. Before He elevates something publicly, He strengthens it privately. Before He produces visible fruit, He develops invisible roots. Before He creates outward victories, He establishes inward stability. Many people want immediate breakthroughs because they focus on results. God focuses on endurance. He knows that what rises quickly without proper foundations often collapses just as quickly. That is why some of your greatest spiritual victories may be developing in places you cannot yet see. Right now, your faith may be growing stronger. Your discernment may be becoming sharper. Your dependence on God may be deepening. Your character may be becoming more refined. None of those changes appear in a bank account. None of them generate applause. None of them attract public attention. Yet they are among the most valuable developments taking place in your life. The truth is that God rarely wastes a waiting season. While you are focused on the destination, He is focused on the transformation. While you are asking when the victory will arrive, He is preparing you to handle the victory when it comes. And this preparation often happens underground. It happens in private prayers. It happens during difficult decisions. It happens through disappointments that teach wisdom. It happens through challenges that build resilience. It happens through moments when you continue trusting God despite seeing no evidence that circumstances are improving. Those moments may feel insignificant. They are not. In fact, they may be shaping the strongest part of your future. Many people would be shocked if they could see everything God is doing beneath the surface of their lives. They would realize that heaven has been active during every silent day. They would discover that apparent inactivity was actually hidden development. They would understand that what looked like delay was often construction. And perhaps that is exactly what God wants you to remember today. Just because you cannot see growth does not mean growth is absent. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean God is standing still. Just because your circumstances look unchanged does not mean your future remains unchanged. Something may be growing beneath the surface right now. Something stronger than you realize. Something that will eventually emerge at exactly the right time. But there is a deeper mystery hidden inside this process. Because sometimes God does not simply allow growth to remain invisible. Sometimes He permits entire plans to fall apart. And when that happens, most people assume they have lost their way. What they do not realize is that God may be redirecting them towards something far greater than they originally imagined. Why God sometimes lets your plans collapse. Few things shake a person's faith more than watching a carefully constructed plan fall apart. You prayed about it. You thought about it for months. You worked for it. You sacrificed for it. You believed it would succeed. Then suddenly the opportunity disappears. The relationship ends. The door closes. The project fails. The dream seems to crumble right in front of your eyes. In those moments, it is easy to believe that something has gone terribly wrong. Many people immediately assume they made a mistake. Others assume God has abandoned them. Some even begin questioning whether they heard God correctly in the first place. But what if the collapse is not proof of failure? What if it is proof of redirection? One of the hardest truths to accept is that not every good plan belongs in God's ultimate purpose for your life. A plan can make sense and still not be God's best. A path can appear promising and still lead away from your destiny. A door can look attractive while hiding consequences you cannot yet see. Because God sees the entire road, we only see the next few steps. This difference changes everything. There are opportunities you wanted that would have distracted you, relationships you desired that would have damaged you, promotions you chased that would have overwhelmed you, victories you requested that would have arrived before you were prepared to sustain them. The painful reality is that we often evaluate events by immediate emotions. If something feels good, we call it a blessing. If something hurts, we call it a setback. But God's perspective extends far beyond temporary feelings. There are moments when His protection feels exactly like disappointment. There are moments when His guidance feels exactly like loss. There are moments when His mercy feels exactly like rejection. And because we cannot immediately see what He sees, we misinterpret what He is doing. Think about Joseph. When his brothers sold him into slavery, everything appeared to collapse. The dreams God had given him seemed impossible. Nothing about that situation looked positive. Nothing suggested progress. Nothing resembled victory. Yet years later, Joseph could see what he could not see in the moment. The path that appeared broken was actually leading him toward the fulfillment of God's promise. What felt like destruction became direction. What felt like loss became positioning. What felt like injustice became preparation. This pattern appears throughout Scripture. Again and again, God allows people to lose what they thought they needed, so they can receive what He had planned all along. The challenge is that this process requires trust. Trust becomes easy when everything works. Trust becomes powerful when everything falls apart. Anyone can believe when circumstances cooperate. Faith reveals its true strength when circumstances contradict what you hoped would happen. That is why some of the most important spiritual growth occurs after disappointment. Disappointment forces us to release control. It forces us to acknowledge that our understanding is limited. It forces us to place our future back into God's hands. And often, that surrender becomes the beginning of something extraordinary. The truth is that some plans must collapse because they are too small for what God intends to build. Some dreams must end because they are preparing the way for a greater dream. Some doors must close because they are preventing you from entering the right one. Today, you may be grieving something that did not work. You may be confused by a closed door. You may be struggling to understand why a carefully planned path suddenly disappeared. But consider this possibility. What if God removed that path because He could see where it ended? What if He closed that door because He knew what stood behind it? What if what feels like an ending is actually a repositioning? Because there is something even more challenging than watching plans collapse. Sometimes God allows a season to continue far longer than we believe it should. And that extended waiting often carries a purpose that most people never recognize until much later. The spiritual weight of an unfinished season. There is a unique kind of exhaustion that does not come from hard work. It comes from waiting. Not waiting for a few days. Not waiting for a few weeks. But waiting through months, sometimes years, while carrying questions that seem to have no answers. This kind of waiting affects the heart differently. At first, you remain hopeful. You tell yourself that change is coming soon. You expect the breakthrough to arrive any moment. You believe the situation is about to turn around. But as time passes, something begins to happen. The excitement fades. The confidence weakens. The certainty becomes harder to maintain. You start wondering why the season continues. You start asking questions you never expected to ask. How much longer? Why hasn't anything changed? Am I missing something? Did I misunderstand God's direction? These questions are not signs of weak faith. They are signs that you are carrying the weight of an unfinished season. And unfinished seasons can feel incredibly heavy. Human beings naturally seek closure. We like conclusions. We like answers. We like knowing where we stand. But God often develops faith in places where closure is unavailable. He teaches trust before explanation. He builds endurance before resolution. He strengthens character before circumstances improve. That process is rarely comfortable. In fact, it can feel deeply frustrating. Because while God is developing something eternal, we are often focused on something immediate. We want movement. We want evidence. We want confirmation. We want visible signs that our waiting is producing something meaningful. Yet many of God's greatest works happen during seasons that appear unfinished. Think about Noah. Year after year, he continued building an ark, while the world around him saw no reason for it. The promise existed. The instructions existed. The purpose existed. But the visible evidence remained absent. Imagine how easy it would have been to quit. Imagine how easy it would have been to conclude that the effort was pointless. Yet Noah's faith was being formed long before the flood ever arrived. His obedience was becoming stronger while nothing around him appeared to change. The same principle appears repeatedly throughout Scripture. God often allows a season to remain incomplete because the process itself contains lessons that cannot be learned any other way. Patience develops there. Perseverance develops there. Dependence upon God develops there. Spiritual maturity develops there. And perhaps most importantly, trust develops there. Not the kind of trust that exists when everything makes sense. The kind that survives when nothing makes sense. Anyone can trust God when the answers are obvious, but trust reaches a different level when the answers remain hidden. That is where many believers discover a deeper relationship with God than they ever imagined possible. Not because life became easier, but because they learned to walk with Him without needing constant reassurance. That lesson changes everything, because eventually there comes a point when you stop measuring God's presence by visible results. You stop demanding immediate explanations. You stop requiring constant confirmation, and instead, you begin resting in the confidence that God remains faithful, even when circumstances remain unfinished. That confidence becomes a source of strength. It allows you to continue moving forward while answers remain unavailable. It allows you to remain faithful while results remain unseen. It allows you to endure a difficult season without allowing that season to define your identity. Because your current chapter is not your entire story. Your present situation is not your final destination. Your unfinished season is not permanent. What feels incomplete today is still being written. What feels delayed today is still moving according to God's timing. What feels unresolved today remains under God's authority. And there is something else happening during these prolonged seasons that most people completely overlook. While you are focused on what has not arrived yet, God may be protecting you from dangers you cannot see. He may be preventing battles you are not ready to fight. He may be keeping certain doors closed for reasons that will only become clear later. And that leads us to a powerful question. What if some of your greatest frustrations are actually forms of divine protection? What God is protecting you from right now? Most people spend their lives asking God to open doors. Very few stop to thank Him for the doors He kept closed. That is because protection rarely feels pleasant when you are living through it. When an opportunity disappears, it feels like loss. When a relationship ends unexpectedly, it feels like heartbreak. When a carefully planned future suddenly changes direction, it feels like confusion. In the moment, almost nobody celebrates those experiences. Most people resist them. Most people question them. Most people pray for the situation to reverse as quickly as possible. Yet what if some of those closed doors were among the greatest blessings God ever gave you? The challenge is that human beings see life through a very narrow window. We see today. God sees years ahead. We see immediate possibilities. God sees future consequences. We see what we want. God sees what will help us and what may ultimately harm us. That difference matters more than we realize. There are people who once begged God for opportunities they later thanked Him for removing. There are relationships they thought would complete them that eventually would have broken them. There are career paths they desperately pursued that later would have pulled them away from their purpose. There are decisions they once considered victories that eventually would have become burdens. But none of that was visible in the moment. At the time, all they could see was disappointment. And that is often how divine protection works. Protection rarely arrives with an explanation. It usually arrives as an interruption, an unexpected delay, a sudden obstacle, a closed door, a change of direction, something that forces you away from the path you wanted to follow. The difficult part is that protection often disguises itself as frustration. And because it does, many people spend months grieving situations that God prevented for their own good. Think about it. How many things have happened in your life that made no sense at the time but became clear later? How many disappointments eventually revealed hidden blessings? How many setbacks redirected you towards something better? How many unanswered prayers ultimately protected you from outcomes you never could have predicted? If you're honest, there are probably more examples than you can count. That is because God's perspective extends far beyond your current circumstances. He is not merely responding to today's needs. He is preparing tomorrow's reality. He is not simply managing the next few weeks. He is orchestrating details that may affect years of your future. And because of that, He sometimes says no when we desperately want yes. He sometimes slows us down when we want acceleration. He sometimes redirects us when we believe we are already on the right path. Not because He is withholding good things, because He is preserving better things. This truth becomes especially important during seasons of stagnation. When life feels motionless, many people assume nothing useful is happening. But what if God is actively protecting your future while you are focused on your present frustrations? What if delays are preventing premature decisions? What if obstacles are preventing unnecessary pain? What if closed doors are preventing consequences you would never choose if you could see the entire picture? The reality is that faith grows strongest when it learns to trust God's wisdom more than personal understanding. That kind of faith does not require immediate explanations. It does not demand complete visibility. It rests in the confidence that God remains good even when his reasons remain hidden. And once you begin seeing life through that perspective, something remarkable starts to happen. You stop viewing every delay as a problem. You stop viewing every obstacle as an enemy. You stop viewing every closed door as a failure. Instead, you begin asking a different question. Not, why is this happening to me? But, what might God be protecting me from? That question changes everything. Because sometimes the greatest evidence of God's love is not what he allows into your life. Sometimes it is what he refuses to allow. Yet there is another challenge that often emerges during these seasons. Even when God is protecting us, many people struggle because they become attached to what feels familiar. And that attachment can quietly prevent them from stepping into the new season God is preparing. The hidden battle between faith and familiarity. One of the greatest obstacles to God's future is not fear, it is familiarity. Most people assume they are waiting for God to move, but often God is waiting for them to let go of what has become comfortable, even when that comfort is limiting them. This is one of the strangest realities of human nature. People can become attached to situations that no longer serve them. They can become comfortable inside environments that restrict their growth. They can remain connected to habits, mindsets, and expectations that God has already called them to leave behind. Not because those things are good, because they are familiar. And familiarity creates a powerful illusion of safety. The known feels safer than the unknown. The predictable feels safer than the uncertain. The current season feels safer than the next season, even when the next season contains the answer to the prayers you've been praying. That is why major transitions often feel uncomfortable. They force us to release what we understand. They force us to trust what we cannot yet see. They force us to exchange certainty for faith. And that exchange is rarely easy. Think about the Israelites after leaving Egypt. For generations, they had lived in bondage. They cried out for deliverance. They prayed for freedom. They longed for a better future. Then God answered. He opened a path. He began leading them toward the promised land. Yet something surprising happened. When challenges appeared, many of them wanted to return to Egypt. Not because slavery was good, because slavery was familiar. The wilderness was uncertain. The future was unclear. Freedom required trust, and trust felt more difficult than returning to what they already knew. That same battle still exists today, not in deserts, not between Egypt and the promised land, but inside the human heart. Every time God begins leading you toward a new season, a conflict emerges. This internal tension explains why some people remain stuck long after opportunities for growth have appeared. They are not waiting for God, they are waiting for certainty. And certainty rarely comes before obedience. God often reveals the next step before he reveals the entire journey. That is where faith becomes necessary. Faith is not simply believing God exists. Faith is moving forward when familiarity keeps pulling you backward. Faith is trusting God's direction even when comfort suggests staying where you are. Faith is believing that what God has ahead is greater than what you are leaving behind. This is especially difficult during stagnant seasons. Because when life feels difficult, familiar things become even more attractive. Old habits, old fears, old limitations, old assumptions about yourself, old versions of your identity. You begin believing that this is simply who you are, that this is simply how your life will always be, that nothing will ever change. But stagnation becomes dangerous when it transforms into identity. You may be in a stagnant season, but you are not a stagnant person. You may be experiencing delay, but you are not defined by delay. You may be facing uncertainty, but uncertainty is not your destiny. God never intended temporary seasons to become permanent identities. That is why he continually invites people to move forward, not because movement is comfortable, because growth requires movement, and growth often begins with letting go of something familiar. The challenge is that most people focus on external changes. They look for new opportunities, new circumstances, and new outcomes. But God's first priority is often something much deeper. Before He changes what is around you, He begins changing what is within you. And once that internal transformation starts, everything else begins moving in a new direction. Why nothing around you changes before something changes within you? One of the most frustrating questions people ask during difficult seasons is this: why isn't anything changing? They look at their circumstances. The same problems remain. The same obstacles remain. The same delays remain. The same unanswered questions remain. And because the external picture looks unchanged, they assume God has not been working. But that assumption has caused countless people to overlook some of the most important moments of transformation in their lives. Because God's first assignment is rarely your circumstances. His first assignment is your heart. This is where His work usually begins, not around you, within you. That truth can be difficult to accept because most of us naturally focus on outcomes. We want the new opportunity. We want the breakthrough. We want the open door. We want the solution. God certainly cares about those things, but He understands something we often forget. External blessings can only carry lasting value when internal foundations are strong enough to support them. Otherwise, the blessing eventually becomes a burden. This explains why God's process often feels slower than we want. While we are praying for changed circumstances, God may be developing a changed perspective. While we are asking for a new opportunity, He may be building wisdom. While we are requesting immediate answers, He may be strengthening patience. While we are seeking success, He may be shaping humility. These internal developments are easy to overlook because they happen gradually. There is no dramatic announcement, no visible celebration, no public recognition. Yet some of the most significant victories in your life may be taking place entirely beneath the surface. Think about who you were 5 years ago. Think about how you handled disappointment. Think about how you responded to pressure. Think about your fears, your priorities, your reactions. If you have been walking with God, there is a good chance you are not the same person today. Perhaps you have more patience. Perhaps you have more wisdom. Perhaps you have greater compassion. Perhaps you recover from setbacks more quickly. Perhaps your trust in God has deepened. Those changes matter. In fact, they may matter more than you realize. Because every major season of influence, responsibility, blessing, and opportunity requires a certain version of you. And God loves you too much to send you into that future without preparing you for it. Many people pray for a greater assignment. Few recognize the transformation required to sustain it. Many ask for increased influence. Few ask for increased maturity. Many desire a larger platform. Few desire a stronger character. But God never separates purpose from preparation. The two always travel together. That is why some seasons feel focused on internal work. God is teaching lessons that circumstances alone could never teach. He is revealing weaknesses that need healing. He is exposing fears that need surrender. He is strengthening faith that will be necessary later. He is teaching dependence before promotion. And often this process takes longer than expected because true transformation cannot be rushed. Growth is not instant. Wisdom is not instant. Character is not instant. Spiritual maturity is not instant. These things develop through experiences, challenges, victories, failures, waiting seasons, and moments that force you to trust God more deeply than before. The remarkable part is that once internal transformation begins reaching maturity, external changes often start appearing as well. Not because God suddenly decided to move, because the preparation reached a new level. The person He was shaping has become more capable of handling what comes next. That is why you should never underestimate what God is doing inside you right now. Even if your circumstances look unchanged, even if your progress feels invisible, even if your breakthrough has not arrived yet, the work happening within you may be laying the foundation for everything you have been praying about. And there is another unexpected gift hidden inside this process. Many of the disappointments you wish had never happened may actually be among the tools God used to shape the person you are becoming. What feels like failure today may contain a lesson that becomes invaluable tomorrow. The unexpected gift. Found in repeated disappointments. Nobody prays for disappointment. Nobody wakes up hoping that another door will close. Nobody asks God for another setback, another rejection, another delay, or another season of frustration. Yet some of the most valuable lessons in life are born from experiences we would never willingly choose. That truth is difficult to accept when disappointment is fresh. When something you cared about falls apart, it hurts. When another opportunity disappears, it hurts. When another prayer remains unanswered, it hurts. When another expectation goes unfulfilled, it hurts. Pain has a way of narrowing our vision. It causes us to focus entirely on what was lost, entirely on what failed, entirely on what did not happen. And because our attention becomes fixed on the disappointment itself, we often miss what God is producing through it. This is where many people make a critical mistake. They assume disappointment is evidence that they are moving away from God's plan. But often the opposite is true. Many disappointments become turning points that move us closer to God's purpose than we could have reached on our own. Think about how disappointment changes a person. It strips away illusions. It exposes false expectations. It reveals weaknesses. It uncovers misplaced trust. It forces difficult questions that success rarely forces. And although those experiences are uncomfortable, they create opportunities for growth that comfort never provides. Success often confirms what we already believe. Disappointment forces us to examine what we believe. That examination can become one of the greatest gifts God ever allows into our lives, because disappointment has a unique ability to reveal where our confidence truly rests. Sometimes we discover that we trusted our plans more than God's guidance. Sometimes we discover that we trusted outcomes more than God's character. Sometimes we discover that we trusted visible circumstances more than God's promises. Those realizations can be painful, but they are also powerful. Because once God reveals those misplaced foundations, He begins replacing them with something stronger, something more stable, something capable of surviving future storms. This is one reason repeated disappointments often produce deeper wisdom. Every setback teaches discernment. Every delay teaches patience. Every rejection teaches perspective. Every unexpected detour teaches flexibility. Over time, those lessons create a level of spiritual maturity that cannot be learned from easy victories alone. And perhaps the greatest lesson disappointment teaches is this: not every opportunity deserves pursuit. Not every open door deserves entry. Not every attractive possibility belongs in your future. When people are young in their faith, they often assume every opportunity is a blessing. As they mature, they begin understanding that discernment is just as important as opportunity. They learn to ask different questions. Not merely, can I do this? But, should I do this? Not merely, is this available? But, is this aligned with God's purpose? Those questions are often learned through disappointment, through experiences that seemed promising but ultimately were not right, through situations that looked perfect but carried hidden consequences, through opportunities that failed because they were never meant to succeed. Looking back, many people realize that their greatest disappointments prevented even greater pain. The relationship that ended, the business that failed, the opportunity that vanished, the dream that changed. At the time, each felt devastating. Years later, many recognized that God's wisdom was protecting them from outcomes they could not foresee. This does not mean disappointment becomes enjoyable. It means disappointment becomes meaningful. And meaningful pain is easier to endure than meaningless pain. Because when God is involved, even disappointment can become part of preparation. Even setbacks can become tools. Even failures can become teachers. Even broken expectations can become stepping stones toward a future you cannot yet fully imagine. The remarkable thing is that repeated disappointments often accomplish something else as well. They gradually remove false sources of security. They expose the things we have leaned on instead of fully leaning on God. And that process, although uncomfortable, may be preparing you for one of the most important transformations of your life. The season where God removes false sources of security. There comes a point in many people's lives when God begins shaking things they once considered permanent. Not because he wants to harm them, not because he wants to create fear, but because he wants to reveal where their trust has quietly settled. This process is rarely comfortable. In fact, it can feel deeply unsettling, because most people build their sense of security around things they can see: a stable income, a predictable routine, a trusted relationship, a carefully constructed plan, a familiar environment. None of these things are wrong. Many of them are blessings from God. The problem begins when blessings slowly become substitutes for dependence on God. At first, the shift is almost impossible to notice. You still pray, you still believe, you still talk about faith. Yet somewhere beneath the surface, your confidence becomes increasingly tied to circumstances instead of God's character. You feel secure because things are stable. You feel confident because life is predictable. You feel peaceful because your plans appear to be working. Then something changes. The stability weakens. The predictability disappears. The plan begins to unravel. And suddenly you discover how much trust was resting on things that could change. This is one of the most difficult lessons God teaches, because he loves his children too much to allow temporary things to become the foundation of their identity. Temporary things eventually fail. Temporary things eventually shift. Temporary things eventually disappear. God does not. That is why he sometimes allows seasons that expose the difference, not to destroy your confidence, to relocate it, to move your trust from unstable foundations to an unshakable one. This process often feels like loss before it feels like growth. Imagine someone learning to walk across a bridge they cannot see. As long as they are holding onto familiar objects, they never learn to trust the bridge itself. Eventually, those supports must be released. Only then do they discover what was carrying them all along. Many believers experience something similar. For years, they depend on visible supports. Then God allows circumstances that gradually remove them. The result is frightening at first. Questions arise, anxiety appears, uncertainty grows. Yet beneath the discomfort, something extraordinary is happening. Faith is becoming deeper. Dependence is becoming stronger. Trust is becoming more authentic. Because real faith is not built when everything is secure. Real faith is revealed when familiar securities disappear. This is why some of the strongest believers are not those who have avoided hardship. They are those who discovered God's faithfulness after other supports failed. They learned that God's presence remained when circumstances changed. They learned that God's provision continued when resources became uncertain. They learned that God's guidance remained available when plans collapsed. And that knowledge transformed them. Not because life became easier, because their foundation became stronger. The truth is that many people pray for stronger faith without realizing what stronger faith requires. Stronger faith is not created through comfort alone. It is often developed through situations that force us to depend on God more than before. Situations where our usual sources of confidence no longer seem sufficient. Situations where we discover whether we truly believe what we have always claimed to believe. Those moments are uncomfortable, but they are also sacred, because they create opportunities to experience God's faithfulness at levels we could never experience while relying entirely on visible securities. Perhaps that is what God is doing in your life right now. Perhaps he is not abandoning you. Perhaps he is strengthening you. Perhaps he is teaching you that your future is safer in his hands than in any plan you could create for yourself. And once that lesson begins taking root, another realization often follows. You start understanding that your waiting season is not only about your personal growth. It may also be preparing you to influence people you have not even met yet. Because God rarely wastes a struggle, and he rarely develops a person solely for their own benefit. Why your waiting season is shaping future influence. Most people see their waiting season as a pause. God often sees it as preparation. That difference changes everything. When you are living through a difficult season, it is natural to focus on your own pain. You focus on the questions, the delays, the disappointments, the uncertainty. You wonder when the season will end and when life will finally begin moving again. But what if your current season is accomplishing something far greater than solving your immediate problems? What if God is using this chapter to prepare you for people whose lives you will impact in the future? This is a perspective many people never consider. They assume their struggles are only about them. Their lessons are only for them. Their growth is only for them. Yet throughout Scripture, God repeatedly used personal struggles to prepare people for public influence. Joseph's years in prison were not only about Joseph. One day they would position him to save countless lives. Moses' years in the wilderness were not only about Moses. One day they would prepare him to lead an entire nation. David's hidden battles were not only shaping David, they were preparing a future king capable of guiding God's people. The pattern appears again and again. God develops individuals in private so they can serve others effectively in public. This means your current struggles may be teaching lessons someone else will desperately need one day. Think about it. Who are the people who have impacted your life most deeply? Usually, they are not the people who avoided hardship. They are the people who survived it. They are the people who learned wisdom through experience. They are the people who faced challenges and discovered God's faithfulness in the middle of them. Their words carry weight because they have lived what they are talking about. Their encouragement feels authentic because it comes from experience rather than theory. That is how influence is often formed, not through comfort, through endurance, not through easy victories, through tested faith, not through perfect circumstances, through perseverance in imperfect circumstances. This is one reason God rarely wastes pain. He often transforms it into purpose. The very struggle that frustrates you today may become the testimony that strengthens someone tomorrow. The lesson you are learning now may become guidance for another person later. The comfort God provides during your difficult season may eventually become comfort you extend to someone else. What feels personal today may carry consequences far beyond your own life. And that realization gives new meaning to waiting, because waiting is no longer simply about surviving. It becomes about preparation. Preparation for opportunities you cannot yet see. Preparation for conversations you have not yet had. Preparation for people you have not yet met. Preparation for responsibilities you have not yet received. The truth is that influence is not created overnight. Influence grows from credibility, and credibility often grows from experience. People trust those who have walked difficult roads and remained faithful. People listen to those who have endured challenges and gained wisdom. People find hope in those who can honestly say, "I know what that feels like, and I know God can carry you through it." Perhaps that is one reason your season has lasted longer than expected. Perhaps God is developing a depth within you that cannot be created quickly. A depth that will allow you to help others in ways you currently cannot imagine. A depth that will transform your pain into purpose. A depth that will turn your testimony into someone else's encouragement. Because God's plans are rarely limited to a single life. The work He does within one person often reaches many others. And as your perspective begins to expand, another truth becomes clear. Some of the closed doors and unexpected detours you've experienced were never random. They were part of a strategy that may only become visible when you look back and see how every piece fit together. The divine strategy, hidden inside closed doors. Few experiences create more frustration than standing in front of a closed door. You believed it would open. You prepared for it. You prayed about it. You imagined what your life would look like once you walked through it. Then nothing happened. The opportunity disappeared. The answer never came. The situation changed, and suddenly you were left wondering why. The difficult part about closed doors is that they rarely arrive with explanations. They simply appear. One day the path seems clear. The next day, it is gone. And because we naturally focus on what was lost, we often fail to consider what might have been gained. This is where many people misunderstand God's strategy. They assume every closed door represents rejection. But sometimes a closed door is not rejection at all. Sometimes it is redirection. The difference is enormous. Rejection says you are unwanted. Redirection says you are being guided somewhere else. Rejection focuses on your worth. Redirection focuses on your destination. Yet when emotions are high, those two experiences can feel almost identical. That is why faith becomes so important. Faith allows you to trust God's guidance before you fully understand His reasons, and God's guidance often includes paths that make little sense in the moment. Think about how many events in your life only became understandable after time passed. At first, they felt confusing, perhaps even painful, but later, you discovered connections you could not see while living through them. You met people you would never have met otherwise. You developed strengths you would never have developed otherwise. You avoided consequences you never knew existed. You arrived at opportunities that only became possible because another door had closed. Looking back, what once seemed random revealed a pattern. That pattern is often evidence of God's unseen strategy. Because while you see individual moments, God sees the entire picture. He sees how one decision influences another. He sees how one opportunity affects future opportunities. He sees how one relationship shapes future relationships. He sees outcomes that remain completely invisible to you today. This is why His guidance sometimes conflicts with your expectations. You are focused on immediate possibilities. He is focused on ultimate purpose. You are focused on the next step. He is focused on the entire journey. And because of that, He sometimes closes paths that appear promising, not because they are bad, because they are not the best. That distinction matters. Many people spend years mourning doors that God intentionally closed. Doors that would have distracted them. Doors that would have delayed them. Doors that would have led them away from the future He intended. At the time, those closures felt painful. Years later, they often become reasons for gratitude. Because hindsight reveals what foresight could not. It reveals how God's wisdom exceeded human understanding. It reveals how apparent setbacks became strategic moves. It reveals how delays became protection. It reveals how redirection became advancement. The remarkable thing is that God rarely wastes anything, not even your detours, not even your disappointments, not even your mistakes. When surrendered to Him, every experience can become part of a larger story, a story moving toward a purpose greater than you currently understand. This perspective changes how you view closed doors. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin asking, "Where might God be leading me?" Instead of seeing only what ended, you begin looking for what may be beginning. Instead of focusing solely on loss, you begin watching for direction. And often, that shift in perspective reveals something extraordinary. You start noticing that progress has been occurring in ways you never measured before. Growth has been happening, transformation has been happening, preparation has been happening. The problem is that many people use the wrong measurements to evaluate their lives, and because of that, they overlook some of the clearest signs that God has already been moving. The moment you stop measuring progress the wrong way. One of the biggest reasons people feel stuck is not because they are actually stuck. It is because they are measuring progress using the wrong standards. They look at their bank account. They look at their position. They look at their circumstances. They look at what other people are achieving. Then they compare their current reality with what they expected their life to be by now. When the two do not match, they conclude that nothing is changing, nothing is improving, nothing is moving forward. But what if the problem is not the absence of progress? What if the problem is the way you are defining progress? This is a question that can completely transform how you see your current season. Because many of the things God values most cannot be measured by external success. You cannot place wisdom on a scale. You cannot measure maturity with a ruler. You cannot calculate faith using a spreadsheet. You cannot track spiritual growth through public recognition. Yet those are often the very areas where God is doing His greatest work. Imagine two people walking through similar circumstances. One becomes bitter. The other becomes stronger. One becomes resentful. The other becomes wiser. One loses hope. The other develops deeper trust in God. Externally, their situations may appear almost identical. Internally, their lives are moving in completely different directions. That difference matters more than most people realize, because internal progress eventually creates external results. The reverse is not always true. A person can gain success without gaining wisdom. They can gain influence without gaining character. They can gain opportunities without gaining maturity. But those victories rarely last. Eventually, weaknesses that were ignored begin creating problems. That is why God often prioritizes internal development before visible advancement. He knows that what is built within you determines how you handle what is placed around you. This is why some seasons feel slow. God is not merely preparing blessings. He is preparing the person who will receive them. And that preparation often includes progress you cannot immediately see. Perhaps you are more patient than you were before. Perhaps your reactions are healthier. Perhaps your relationship with God is deeper. Perhaps you recover from disappointment more quickly. Perhaps your confidence is becoming less dependent on circumstances. These changes may not generate headlines, but they represent real progress, powerful progress. The kind of progress that creates lasting transformation. The danger comes when you ignore these victories because they do not match your expectations. Many people spend years believing they are failing when they are actually growing. They become discouraged because they focus entirely on what has not happened. Meanwhile, they overlook everything God has already done. This creates unnecessary frustration because gratitude becomes difficult when you only measure what is missing. But when you begin recognizing internal growth, something changes. Hope begins returning. Perspective begins shifting. Confidence begins increasing. You realize that God has been active all along, not necessarily in the ways you expected, but in ways that may ultimately prove even more valuable. The truth is that some of the most important victories happen long before they become visible. The decision to keep believing, the choice to remain faithful, the willingness to trust God despite uncertainty, the courage to continue moving forward when progress feels invisible. Those victories matter, and they are often signs that God is preparing you for something larger than you currently understand. Because there is a pattern that appears throughout Scripture and throughout life. Before God releases greater favor, He often develops greater endurance. Before larger responsibilities arrive, deeper strength must exist. Before new opportunities appear, the ability to sustain them must be established, and understanding that pattern may completely change the way you view your waiting season. Why God often builds endurance before He releases favor. Most people pray for favor. They pray for opportunities. They pray for breakthroughs. They pray for open doors, promotion, influence, provision, and success. There is nothing wrong with those prayers. The problem is that many people focus on receiving favor while overlooking the responsibility that comes with it. Because every blessing carries weight. Every opportunity carries responsibility. Every promotion carries pressure. Every assignment carries challenges. And if a person lacks endurance, even a blessing can become overwhelming. This is why God often develops endurance before He releases favor. He prepares your strength before He expands your assignment. He increases your capacity before He increases your influence. He builds stability before He adds responsibility. At first, this process can feel confusing. You ask God for advancement. Instead, you face challenges. You ask for opportunity. Instead, you encounter obstacles. You ask for growth. Instead, you experience pressure. It can seem as though God is moving in the opposite direction of your prayers. But what if the pressure itself is part of the answer? What if God is strengthening you today so you can sustain what He plans to release tomorrow? Think about an athlete preparing for competition. The training is not the reward. The training prepares the athlete for the reward. The resistance is not the destination. The resistance develops the strength necessary to reach the destination. Without preparation, the opportunity becomes dangerous. Without endurance, the challenge becomes overwhelming. Without strength, the responsibility becomes crushing. The same principle applies spiritually. God understands that your future requires a version of you that may not fully exist yet. Not because you are inadequate, because growth is still taking place. There are lessons that can only be learned through perseverance. There are strengths that only emerge under pressure. There are qualities that only develop through prolonged faithfulness. Patience develops when waiting lasts longer than expected. Trust develops when answers remain hidden. Perseverance develops when quitting appears easier than continuing. Character develops when no one is watching. These qualities cannot be rushed, and they cannot be purchased. They are forged through experience. This explains why many people underestimate the value of difficult seasons. They see only the struggle. God sees the strength being created through the struggle. They see the delay. God sees the endurance. They see the obstacle. God sees the preparation. What feels like resistance may actually be development. What feels like pressure may actually be training. What feels like a burden may actually be increasing your capacity for what comes next. Throughout life, some people receive opportunities they are not prepared to handle. The result is often disappointment, not because the opportunity was wrong, because their preparation was incomplete. God's wisdom works differently. He often delays what we want so He can develop what we need. That development becomes a gift, because when favor finally arrives, you are able to sustain it. When responsibility increases, you are able to carry it. When opportunities appear, you are able to steward them wisely. The blessing no longer overwhelms you. You have become strong enough to walk in it. This perspective changes how you view difficult seasons. Instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" you begin asking, "What strength is God developing within me?" Instead of focusing only on the delay, you begin recognizing the preparation. Instead of becoming discouraged by the process, you begin understanding its purpose. Because every season has a reason. Every challenge carries potential. Every moment of endurance is building something valuable. And eventually, there comes a point when the preparation begins reaching completion. The lessons become clearer. The growth becomes visible. The perspective begins changing. You start sensing that the season you have been living in for so long may not last forever. And there are often signs that a chapter is approaching its conclusion long before the new chapter fully begins. The signs that your current chapter is nearing its end. One of the most encouraging truths about difficult seasons is this: no season lasts forever. The chapter you are living right now may feel permanent. The waiting may feel endless. The uncertainty may feel unbreakable. But throughout life, God continually moves people from one season into another. What feels permanent today often becomes a memory tomorrow. The challenge is that while we are living inside a season, we usually cannot see where it ends. We focus on what is happening now. God is already preparing what comes next. And although He rarely reveals every detail in advance, there are often signs that a chapter is approaching its conclusion. Not dramatic signs, not always visible signs, but meaningful signs. The first sign is often a shift within yourself. You begin noticing that your perspective is changing. The situation may remain the same. The circumstances may remain unchanged. Yet something inside you feels different. The fear that once controlled you loses some of its power. The anxiety that once dominated your thoughts begins fading. The frustration that once consumed your attention becomes easier to manage. This internal change matters, because before God changes your environment, He often changes your perspective. The second sign is increasing clarity. For a long time, everything may have felt confusing. Questions seemed unanswered. Direction seemed uncertain. The future seemed hidden. Then slowly, small pieces begin falling into place. You do not necessarily receive every answer, but you begin seeing enough to take the next step. The fog starts lifting. The path becomes slightly clearer, and what once felt impossible begins feeling possible again. The third sign is a renewed sense of expectation. Not wishful thinking, not blind optimism, a deeper confidence, a quiet belief that something is beginning to shift. You cannot fully explain it. You cannot fully prove it. Yet hope starts returning. Faith starts strengthening. Anticipation starts growing. It is as though your spirit recognizes movement before your circumstances reveal it. This often happens because God is preparing your heart to receive what comes next. The fourth sign is increased spiritual sensitivity. You find yourself listening more carefully, praying more intentionally, paying closer attention to God's direction. The distractions that once seemed important lose their appeal. Your focus sharpens. Your priorities become clearer. Your desire to follow God's leading becomes stronger. This is significant because transitions require discernment, and God often increases spiritual awareness before opening new doors. The fifth sign is an unusual sense of dissatisfaction with remaining where you are. This can feel confusing. After all, you spent months or years asking God for stability. Now stability no longer feels enough. You begin sensing that the current chapter has accomplished its purpose. You appreciate what God taught you there. But deep inside, you know you are not meant to remain there forever. This dissatisfaction is not always negative. Sometimes it is God's way of preparing you to move forward. His way of loosening your attachment to a season that is ending. His way of helping you embrace a future that is approaching. Perhaps the most important thing to remember is this. It often arrives gradually. Like sunrise, the darkness does not disappear all at once. The light slowly increases. What was hidden becomes visible. What was uncertain becomes clearer. What once seemed impossible begins taking shape. And before long you realize that you have entered a completely different chapter. Maybe that is closer than you think. Maybe the growth, endurance, wisdom, and faith God has been building within you are preparing you for a transition that is already beginning. Maybe the chapter you thought would never end is approaching its conclusion. And if that is true, then there is one final truth you need to hear, because your feelings may still tell you that nothing is changing. Your circumstances may still suggest that you are stuck. But God's reality is often very different from what your emotions are trying to convince you to believe. The victory is closer than your feelings tell you. At the beginning of this journey, we talked about something that almost everyone experiences at some point in life. The feeling of being stuck. The feeling that nothing is moving. The feeling that your prayers are disappearing into silence. The feeling that everyone else is advancing while you remain in the same place. If you have been carrying those feelings, I want you to remember something important. Feelings are real, but feelings are not always reliable. They describe what you sense. They do not always reveal what God is doing, and that distinction can change everything. Throughout this entire message, we have uncovered a truth that appears again and again throughout life and throughout Scripture. God often works where human eyes cannot see. He develops roots before fruit. He builds endurance before favor. He shapes character before opportunity. He creates strength before responsibility. And he prepares people before revealing the purpose he has been forming all along. That means the season you called stagnant may have been one of the most productive seasons of your life. Not productive according to the world's measurements, productive according to heaven's. Because while you were looking for visible progress, God may have been building invisible strength. While you were waiting for circumstances to change, God may have been changing you. While you were asking for immediate answers, God may have been preparing lasting solutions. Think about everything we have discussed. The hidden season was not punishment. The delays were not abandonment. The closed doors were not necessarily rejection. The disappointments were not wasted. The waiting was not meaningless. Every chapter carried purpose. Every challenge carried lessons. Every obstacle carried preparation. And every moment was contributing to something larger than you could see. This is why you must be careful not to judge your entire future based on your present emotions. Emotions change. Circumstances change. Seasons change. God's faithfulness does not. The same God who guided people through deserts also led them into promises. The same God who worked in prisons also worked in palaces. The same God who remained present in waiting seasons remained present in victory seasons. His character never changed, and his character has not changed today. Perhaps you are still waiting for answers. Perhaps you are still facing uncertainty. Perhaps there are prayers you continue bringing before God. If so, do not mistake delay for absence. Do not mistake silence for inactivity. Do not mistake preparation for rejection. Because some of the greatest victories arrive after the longest periods of uncertainty. Some of the greatest breakthroughs emerge from seasons that appeared completely unremarkable. Some of the greatest stories begin in chapters that looked ordinary while they were being lived. You may be standing inside one of those chapters right now. A chapter that does not make sense yet. A chapter that feels unfinished. A chapter that seems smaller than the future you hoped for. But remember this, the people who eventually witnessed God's greatest work often had no idea what he was doing while the process was unfolding. Only later did they understand. Only later did they see how every delay, every challenge, every detour, and every lesson fit together. Only later did they recognize that God had been working the entire time. One day, you may look back and realize the same thing. You may discover that what felt like stagnation was actually construction. What felt like waiting was actually preparation. What felt like weakness was actually strengthening. What felt like a closed chapter was actually the beginning of something greater. So keep moving forward. Keep trusting. Keep praying. Keep believing. Not because everything is easy. Not because every question has been answered. But because God has proven His faithfulness again and again. And if He has been faithful in the past, He will remain faithful in the future. Your current chapter is not the end of your story. Your present struggle is not the final sentence. Your waiting season is not your permanent address. There is more ahead than you can currently see. More purpose, more growth, more opportunity, more grace. And perhaps far sooner than you think, you will discover that the victory God was preparing never stopped moving toward you. It was approaching even when you could not see it. It was developing even when you could not feel it. It was being prepared even when you thought nothing was happening. And now, after everything you have endured, everything you have learned, and everything God has built within you, you are closer to that victory than your feelings have ever allowed you to believe. Before you leave, let me ask you something. How many times has God carried you through situations that should have broken you? How many times has He made a way when there seemed to be no way? How many times has He remained faithful, even when you struggled to understand what He was doing? If this message spoke directly to your heart today, that is not a coincidence. Perhaps God wanted to remind you that you are not forgotten, that your waiting season has a purpose, and that your victory is closer than you think. So if you believe God is still working in your life, take a moment right now and subscribe to this channel. Not just to support the channel, but to become part of a community of people who are choosing faith over fear, hope over discouragement, and God's promises over life's uncertainties. Every video we share is created to strengthen your faith, encourage your spirit, and remind you that God is with you in every season. And if you are still waiting for your breakthrough, type these words in the comments. God is preparing my victory. Let that declaration be a reminder to yourself and an encouragement to someone else who may be reading it today. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and continue walking this journey of faith with us. Because the next message you hear may be the very message God uses to strengthen you exactly when you need it most. Remember this: God has not abandoned your story. He has not forgotten your prayers. He has not canceled His promises, and He is not finished with you yet.